So a couple of years ago, there was this movie. And yes, I promise this will make sense. It will all tie in with Concord. Just let me explain a little bit. There was this movie called Morbius. It was bad. It was really bad. It was so bad, in fact, that people started using the term Morbius and its Morbin time as a colloquial replacement for literally any term that comes close to bad. That is one hell of a power, honestly. And needless to say, that movie completely imploded. It was horrible. But that movie managed to do something not a lot of things have managed to do in their life, and that is humiliate Sony not once but twice. Because you see what happened with Morbius. It failed, but a month passed, and people were still morbid out of their minds. And then another month passed, and people were still morbid like there was no tomorrow. And Sony, being the literal autistic existences that they are, because they probably just asked Google, hey, how many people are talking about Morbius? And Google said, Morbius is really morbid hard right now. And they thought, wow, that must mean it's good. And so they decided to re-release it in theaters because finally the plebs, they understand the greatness of Morbius. It's truly Morbin time. And yes, it truly was Morbin time. Because it failed and burned and crashed again. It was one of the stupidest decisions anyone has ever made. And not even made by Disney or Marvel. It was made by Sony. But all of these companies, honestly, are kind of fighting for the title dumbest idiots ever. But yes. And the thing is, Concord's kind of trying to pull a Morbius now. Which is kind of hilarious.
So the other day on stream, I saw an article from VGC where they described how they had found a work-in-progress build of Concord that had leaked somewhere on the internet. They didn't say where or provide any info, but that they had actually downloaded it, installed it, and gotten it to boot up and everything. And they shared some basic screenshots and everything, but I thought it was, like, interesting. But I was like, this is Concord we're talking about. We need to actually find this. So I did some digging. I did a lot of Googling and investigating. And,
And here it is.
yeah, I got it running.
You can tell it's Concord. It's blurred, but you can already tell that everything is fucked there. It's truly amazing how Concord just is so bad.
Concord's not dead, folks. It's still here. Sort of. Not really. It's mostly dead, but let me share this with you because it's kind of crazy. But first, a quick thank you to the sponsor of this video. I want to say thank you for
though.
how they found a work-in-progress build called FW Chaos, which was uploaded over the weekend and claims to be dated from November of 2023. They describe how they downloaded it and can confirm that it was authentic, but there's not much more than that.
So the thing about Concord, this is not actually anything new. People were speculating. I didn't speculate on this because I thought, Jesus Christ, Concord burned so fucking hard that companies have a tendency to reanimate old and dead projects because you learn a lot from failure. You know what you're not supposed to do a second time. Too bad it doesn't work in the game industry like that, it seems like. But typically, you'll learn a lot from these things. So, it looks like they were trying to upgrade Concord and make it different, make it remake it or do something like that previously already. So this is technically not new news. Technically, we have been in the Concord back limbo for a couple of months at this point, which is hilarious.
They describe it kind of in text form and there's some basic screenshots, but I was like, fam, this is Concord we're talking about. We gotta go all out. I can't just look at the article and assume what they're saying is true. I wanna see it for myself. So I went through some rabbit holes. I did a lot of searching, went onto a fair number of forums, and was eventually able to track down a post describing where it was initially posted for download. It was eventually taken down. However, some very resourceful people put and backed up this work in progress build of Concord that was probably leaked by a developer and they uploaded it to the Internet Archive, which is awesome. That's way easier. I wish I
Again, reminder, Sony had to pay roughly 400 plus million for Concord. And that's as much as we know. Again, the price is probably going to go up in the next years. But yeah, so Sony's not really happy with this. They got sold the dream of this is going to be bigger than GTA. This is the new Call of Duty. And yes, the people at Concord, if you don't know the story, legitimately were autistic enough to really think that they're going to be the next new thing.
had known that going in. But after finding that backup, you can see that it has been uploaded and it is in fact dated November 14th of 2023 as its official publication date. However, if you try to run that version of the build, it just doesn't do anything. And it's because it is locked away because it was a development build. So the only way to get into it is with a specific engine layout or INI file that has the specific rules and commands to override all of these specific instructions that typically would keep it locked down. And what's crazy is that this build leaked with that INI file provided, which really makes me think this was leaked by a developer on Concord who probably had this build like on a work laptop or a thumb drive or something, and they decided to upload it to the internet so that Concord in one shape or another could continue to live on. And
it was probably one of the guys who worked at Concord and was disillusioned about the fact that, oh my god, this is shit. This is not the next GTA. This is literal trash. And it got sold to Sony for 200 millis. Insanity.
When you look at this file that they provide, I mean, I don't know a lot of like coding. I don't know a lot of this stuff
It's fine. Neither does Pirate Software, but he's kind of managing
myself, but it doesn't seem like something you're just going to throw together and guesstimate by, especially some of these very specific scripts that they run at the end of the INI file. So once you get all of this hooked up and you set it up, you can in fact boot into Concord. It has audio. It has the character select screen. And, you know, as you can see, there's some artifacting and stuff because, again, this is dated roughly 9 months before the final launch version of the game. But you can see some of our favorite characters. Of course, this is Mushroom Girl or guy, I'm not sure. And it's like a work in progress model, not a finalized model. And some of them look way more finished than others. Obviously, some of them have like different color variants than what we would see in the final game for their starting skins and things like that. Some of them are very, very basic, but it is
Dude, this is better than the finished thing. I'm not even gonna lie. This is actually better than the finished thing because it has less cringe on it.
Now, if you're wondering whether or not you can actually play like matches, no. As far as I am aware, you're not able to do that. All of the UI elements remain static, so there's no way to like adjust any of this stuff. It also says where's werewolf party member invited. I don't know who that is, but it's stuck on the screen. So I'm thinking maybe that was like another developer or something. I have no idea. But if we go here, you can see there's like the galactic guide. I can click on it. It loads for a second. It tries.
And
it's
nothing?
working, but I don't think anything's happening. Oh God. Oh, maybe something's happening. Boom, there you go. And now you can see it's actually running and it looks, oh, this is cool. I can try to like wiggle around with WASD, but the commands are like really choppy and stuff. But this was going to be used to like show different planets and stuff in the game and different things. Yeah, missing image. You can see there's a lot of placeholders because of course this was pretty early on in the process for building out final like executables for the game. Planet body, more missing images, missing image, all of this. But it is technically working. You can explore it, which is kind of cool. There, of course, is still the
Concord was supposed to have a story, a show behind it or something like that.
store page, and if you try to click on that, it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't have anything.
Honestly, that's a miracle. The fact that the store doesn't work is probably the most shocking thing I have seen about this.
You can see there is upcoming server maintenance on Monday, so we can rest assured there that they are working on it, I guess. If you go to like the job board, you can see there's dailies and like placeholders here that are just really, really basic progression stuff with placeholder text still outlined there, seasonal stuff with placeholder basic text there as well. Crew and like similar thing. Like it's all very much work in progress. I think this was a build that they had put together at some point just to kind of have broad strokes stuff laid out just to get a feeling for how the game would look and run. Now, as part of this whole thing, I did find out that there is a small Discord community of hardcore Concord fans and also people just fascinated by the whole thing.
I can already imagine the smell. Hardcore Concord fans, boys. Now that sounds like some devilish shit right there.
That have been trying to dig into this development build of the game. And when they dug into it and, you know, using a lot more knowledge of how to manipulate the code than me, they're able to get into like work in progress dev rooms and find this same character in a like early work in progress state that is labeled Grappler, and you can see the Renegade is over there. You can see we have our sniper character over there. Lennox has his own spot. So they've been able to actually get into the game a little bit deeper and find all of these cool little trinkets and snippets. And I don't remember this dude, but they do also have character art for him that they were working on at some point, and it looks like they officially released it. I don't know where this came from.
It looks like he has an ass strap. Like, what the hell is the point of this? Like, why does everything in this game have to be just omega cringe? Well, what is wrong with the colored palette here? Why does one of his arms... Oh, because it's not covered by a sleeve. But that was such a bad choice. Like, why?
But there's a lot of fun little tidbits in here. It is funny that, like, even these work in progress characters are really bland and like really not that interesting, but you know, that's just you know, the age old story of Concord, I guess. And in this same server, there are people that have been able to get deeper once again into the dev build to find like testing rooms that they had where you can see like clear pets, death, health, and I think pets was like the development term for like status effects and things. I don't know, but role perks, you can go and acquire each of those before running into the test room. Volume tests, you can see they have correction something listed there. They have different server versions. I don't know if this is something that is older or if this is from this specific build. I don't know, but this group of pretty hardcore dedicated Concord people have been doing a lot of work on this, trying to get it at least working in a somewhat familiar state, getting it to the point where it can at least function in broad strokes again. And, you know, I don't know if that...
Guys, listen, believe. Concord is gonna be back, okay? It's gonna be back.
That'll ever happen.
The studio got shut down. It doesn't matter if Sony just cares about the IP, because that thing is a fucking golden goose, okay? It's gonna start laying eggs soon.
If it will ever actually amount to anything, because realistically, if they ever got it working again, I would imagine PlayStation will just swoop in and shut it down, send them a cease and desist, and move on from there. But at this point, it's basically just a modding team that's kind of messing around with it, seeing if they can get it working for like private matches just for the fun of it. And it is funny that like they could barely scrape together a few hundred people at a time on Steam when it launched, but now there still are dedicated people that are interested in it, and maybe not to like play it in any sort of competitive sense, but they are interested in it kind of as a morbid fascination, as a piece of gaming history. And it brings me to another point, which is that at this point, it's been approaching a year since the catastrophic launch of Concord, and yet people still talk about it. You still clicked on this video because you're still kind of curious about what's going on with all of this. And
now, to be fair, I just want to laugh about how absolutely disastrous they are. I personally see absolutely nothing wrong with just making fun of something this bad, so this delusional, this absolutely insane. So we can send out a message that says, hey, if you do this, you're gonna burn. This is not gonna work out. It's all trash. Stop. Don't do it.
And, you know, somebody on stream asked if this is because like the game was actually really good and we regret it like failing, or if it's just become a meme at this point, or if it really was so bad that it actually deserves to be.
God, a question like that, I would just be like, no, you're banned. You're fucking banned. The fucking fact that you have eyes and fucking ears and you can't figure out that people are just memeing about how bad Bro, listen, that's the type of person who sees a post on Twitter and he's like, Grok, what does that mean? You just watched the video. It's what the video is. Why are you asking, Grok, what does that mean? Why? Alexa, buy a rope and a life-size tree imitation.
Be remembered so often. And I think it's maybe a little bit of everything. Like, Concord at its core was not a terrible game. And I can say that as somebody that actually played it.
Oh, geez, listen, I don't need to play this, okay? There's a lot of mouth breathers. There's a lot of people who are extremely stupid and should not deserve human rights. The minds call for them. Who are like, how can you say that this game is bad? You haven't played. I have seen it. I have seen it. Just from 2 seconds of gameplay, I can already tell that this shit is bad. It's boring.
It's one of the few people that actually bought the game, downloaded it, and played it on stream for hours. And having done that, I can say that it was a solid game, a solid first-person shooter with, you know, some pretty basic game modes, but it wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad, it wasn't a broken, buggy disaster of a game or anything. It just was unremarkable and really uninspired, in my opinion, and it was, at its core, a game nobody wanted. But in the game,
look, relax. You're not gonna get sponsored to say good things about Concord in the future.
gaming space, a lot of games are...
By the way, I had one comment that was saying, why are you saying Luke is a shill? How can you say that? Okay, yeah, true, he got sponsored to say good things about the game, but after he was sponsored, he made another video where he said it, oh, it's actually not that bad. You see? Still. Dude, bruh. Do I need to explain everything that even a toddler should probably fucking understand? If you get sponsored to say a good thing about a thing, the expectation, the unwritten rules are, if you ever want to get sponsored again, you don't fucking then after the sponsorship call it a bad game. That's how it works. And in fact, some actual sponsorship deals literally have written in them you can't say anything bad about the game or make negative videos about it for a month. That's also something some sponsorships have in there.
Made or broken, not necessarily just on what they are, but also on what they represent to the broader gaming community. And in this case, I think that is largely what happened. The reason why like PlayStation hardcore gamers weren't interested in Concord was because it just wasn't a game they ever were going to be interested in. They just weren't compelled to commit all this time and money to a game that's similar to a lot of other games that have already come out. And they were also frustrated that Sony was putting so much effort, time, and money.
He's showing clips where he's killing people. So if you're telling me Luke was actually good at this game, I honestly can believe it that you would say it's not bad, because if you like something, if you're good at something, you're probably not gonna want to call it shit, because that reflects poorly on you.
Into a game like this instead of single player games, which have been much more absent, at least it feels that way in this generation compared to last generation. And then among the players who are interested in first person hero based shooter games, there were already games available for them to play. Games like Overwatch 2 were very popular even back last year before Marvel Rivals launched. And when Marvel Rivals launched, it also exploded in popularity because it had a ton of quality of life features and content that Concord just didn't have. And of course, some people...
Listen, guys, Concord was worse than everything, and it was one of the worst games ever, but it wasn't that bad. Trust me.
Will bring up like the character designs being lame and uninteresting, and I do think that there is an element of truth to that. Like, none of these characters...
Oh, is there? It's there. Okay, and it's not just being a lame and looking lame and uninteresting, okay? It's just the absolute zero... Okay, 60 IQ that was put into making this game and fucking deciding what the shit you're gonna do with it, okay? So let me explain something. What you're looking at here right now, something that is referred to as a kinesis or whatever. She has the power of pyrokinesis, effectively. I don't know how the fuck you call those people. But Do you know what she used as a weapon? Well, she literally has the elemental powers of fucking fire! A child's slingshot. That's right. In the space age, we're using slingshots. And it has marbles that slightly explode into fucking glitter. How the hell did anyone think that this is gonna be successful is beyond me, honestly, but that's okay.
Are particularly interesting. A lot of them are frankly cringe and look like
That
blueberries. Like I just Tupperware head, as you can see. There's a lot of these characters that are just kind of lame. You know, they're not particularly cool, and that's a problem when your game is a hero shooter game. If
okay, listen, at least this game is fed, okay?
particularly cool,
Wait.
these characters that are just
Because,
kind
look,
of lame.
we have genetic Michael Jackson when he was black.
You know, they're not
And then
particularly
we have genetic white guy, okay? At least they're kind of fair in how lame they are, okay?
cool, and that's a problem when your game is a hero shooter game. If people don't like the heroes, why would they get like invested in it? And you could say, oh well, you got to start somewhere. Overwatch started with unknown characters, and
Like, this is pretty bad and boring, but the fact that you actually have a woman that almost has, like, curves and shit is... someone probably needed to fight tooth and nail to make this character happen because everyone was against it.
totally fresh. That's true, but it also started a decade ago, you know, and it took years and years and years to build up into what it is. I feel like Concord launched and they expected that kind of reception day one, and they were shocked that people didn't already find the characters super cool and witty and interesting. But it's like, no, you don't get to just get that reaction. You have to build up to it, you know? But don't get me wrong, the design of the characters...
I mean, no, you can actually 100% get that reaction. A lot of games do that. It's not a big deal, in fact. You can make character that's likable, cool, and interesting right there off the bat. You don't need to spend 5 millennia trying to sell the idea to a person that this character is cool. You don't need to do that. Anyway, that was Luke Steffens, 10 out of 10 Looky Poo. Bye!